Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maria Dismondy. Welcome back to another creative marketing interview. I am the founder and publisher of Cardinal Rule Press. You can see our little logo in the background, and we publish children's picture books. And one of the things that I've discovered as founder of the company is the importance of marketing. So if you're tuning in right now, we're going to talk about today's going to actually be focused on the book industry. Typically, the last few interviews were very general marketing, but if you're tuning in as an author, pay attention. If you're tuning in as someone who is selling a service or some other type of product, I'm sure you can learn something today that will help you to be useful in your industry. So welcome, Naomi Blackburn. How are you today?
I am fantastic and thrilled to be here.
Yay! Well, Naomi has a wonderful, very unique background. She actually is in healthcare. She has an MBA, and she kind of stumbled upon the book industry. So tell us a little bit about you. Well, you kind of gave me the history. Tell us a little bit about what you do in the book industry.
Well, I started off, I am an avid book reader. Love books. Read more books than I do TV, watch TV. And so I was introduced to Goodreads, probably the worst thing that ever happened in my life. So I was introduced to Goodreads and had gone on there and was able to connect with a lot of great authors, different things like that. And had the opportunity, had started a group called Sisterhood of the Traveling Book. We were a book review site or a book review club. Yeah, and was able to meet other new authors that way and all kinds of good stuff. And had an opportunity to write a column for an author friend of mine called, it was originally called Authors Behaving Badly. And we basically talked a little bit about etiquette and different things on Goodreads, how not to irk readers and all that good stuff. And then we went into, and then we really wanted to put a more positive spin on it. So it became the author's CEO. And at some point, the author's CEO had spun off into my own company. I continued writing and continued to, and went into a consulting type of role with authors as to, how they could sell more books, different things along that line, teaching them how to write business plans, which is really critical. An author is a small business, and it's really critical that they treat their books that way.
Oh, I'm so glad you're saying that.
Yeah.
I've heard so many clients that I bring on, and they say, writing is my hobby. I'm not a business person. I'm like, yeah, but if you want to be a published author, you have to treat it as a small business. You truly do.
Yeah. I mean, you are putting a ton of money into the book, and when you put money into something, most people don't do it just to, say, there's money flushed down the toilet,
Yeah, exactly.
or there's money that goes out the window. You're looking to get something back from it. And so, and especially it is expensive. I heard, what was the last going rate of $11,000 to bring a book that's done correctly to bring a book to market.
Absolutely. And when I first self-published, because I started with a publishing company and then I self-published, it was $13,000 that first time. So that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So Naomi, you were doing all of this while working full time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a healthcare executive, so I'm in healthcare administration. So so it was doing all of that, and basically what I had found as I continued on, because I was also president of my friends group, my library's friends group, and at that point had started to get to know libraries and different things like that, and talking to libraries about why were they not bringing on the self-published books and things like that, and no credible review source and different things like that. So really my idea for Indie Picks magazine had launched from that. And basically what Indie Picks magazine is that it is a review magazine. It is, the editor-in-chief will always be a librarian who has editorial experience, different things along that line. And then to be any type of writer in the magazine, with the exception, I should say, of people who are writing columns, but anyone who's doing any type of review, different things along that line, they have to be a librarian, and a librarian who writes a blog and has review experience.
So you have several people on your team, as far as editing and submitting these reviews to the magazine.
Right. We have an editor-in-chief. So we have an editor-in-chief, and then who comes from a library background, or who will come from a library background always. And then we have 12 reviewers who are all librarians. So, and how we wanted indie picks to be different, because what we were hearing from the librarians is that even though there are sources out there for book reviews for indie, what we were hearing is that because the author has to purchase those reviews, that they were no longer, or that it was Goodreads, or it was Amazon, different things along that line. There was no credible review source out there. So when our business model was initially set up, it was set up that we were really only focusing on the libraries. So what we wanted to say to the libraries was, you know what? Your own industry is reviewing these these books. So
that's awesome.
To give them that credibility and things like that. So that's kind of where we are. Now, we had set it up with a book page model. I love the magazine book page, so I was going to use their model.
And book page is an entity of Publishers Weekly.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I was going absolutely love them to pieces. And so basically, I had wanted to do a magazine that was along that line. And what we had found was that we were really going crazy with the subscriptions. We were doing well with the subscriptions, but what we were finding was that the librarians were using it more as a reference tool versus, which beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so, but what our model was not sustainable under that. So basically what we're looking at doing is that we are now redoing that model, or we're revamping our model, and then we're going to be heading into relaunch. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'm thinking January 2019.
Fantastic.
Is actually when it'll launch.
So if you're tuning in and you are a published author and you come from an indie press or a self-published background, correct?
Right. It is anything outside of the big five. So it's any indie outside of the big five, Amazon, independent publishing houses, small, medium, large, self-published. Now we do have criteria that the author needs to meet, or that the publishing house needs to meet, and that is that they really need to. Have to be edited. There has to be a professional editor that has been involved in that book, and we do check the reference.
Good.
And there is, and there needs to be a cover designer that has been brought into place. So because when we look at that, a person has taken that step to bring in those two people, those two vendors, or those two designers. That they are considering themselves to be professionals, and not the hobbyists, like you were just saying.
Yeah, and for those of you tuning in, when we are talking about creative marketing, this is key, because Naomi, I'm sure you've heard from librarians. I know I've heard from librarians. I actually witnessed it with my own two eyes, walking into our public library. And what was the children's librarian doing? She was sitting there and she was reading a review magazine.
Yep.
This is where the librarians look in order to purchase books for their library.
I've had librarians who have been like, please tell me that you are relaunching. I get 2 to 3 things a week just going, please tell me, and me going, it's coming back. Don't worry. We just have to look at what model is going to be sustainable, not only for the authors, but for the librarians as well. You know what, Naomi?
Amazon relaunched their model as far as reviews go just a few years ago. So this is, I think, what you're doing is a really smart thing. Amazon had to make sure that they had credible reviewers, and they put a system in place so that there wasn't the spam happening, and there weren't, family members reviewing for each other. So this is a smart thing that you were doing. And those of you tuning in, I think this interview should really bring home the importance to you spending time. 4 to 6 months before your book goes to print is typically when you want to be looking for review sites, very much ahead of time before publication, submitting to different review publications. And Indie Picks would be one to look into at the end of the year.
Our thing is with us ethically, it is we are making sure that those authors or, the publishing houses, that they aren't paying for those reviews. One, because just for us, if you're an author, if you have taken it seriously, because you don't have the, traditional 5 publishing logo, on the spine of your book is not a reason to be punished. So, and the other thing is because I truly believe that in reading, again, I read 300 books a year. I truly believe that some of the best work that I've seen come out has come out of the indies. We're not seeing the ticky, what I called, the saying from the 60s, and no, I'm not that old, but the 60s and the ticky-tacky houses and different things along that line is that, there's a lot of great books, and we don't want to see them punished because they have simply, to me, gone a different publishing route, which to me is, it's more courageous to go that route than to send your book off and sell the rights and different things like that.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, one of our viewers right now, Amy Martin, said 300 books a year bows to you. And I have to tell you, my goal this year is 50 books. And I was like, this is a lot. And I'm just so impressed. You are an avid reader, and which launches me, Naomi, into the fact that you are in the top 1% of Goodreads top reviewers. That is amazing. So can we kind of pop into talking a little bit about etiquette over on Goodreads? And you mentioned a publication that you had put out about authors making some bad choices with bad etiquette. I would love for you to tell us what are you still seeing as bad etiquette so that those authors and those in the industry that are tuning in can avoid making those same mistakes.
Okay, my number one, everybody gets bad reviews. The Bible has 1-star reviews on Goodreads.
Oh my goodness.
So everybody gets bad reviews. I have a saying, a bad review is like the sun coming up the next day. Expect it. And
great analogy.
Moved on, and it's, if I have written 1-star reviews because I'm also a NetGalley reviewer. I've written 1-star reviews. I'm not talking about the drama queen, look at me, how badly can I write down or rip this author apart, different things like that. Those are the reviews that you snicker at and go.
Those are the people who are having a bad day and they're taking it out on something that they shouldn't.
Yeah. Or that's how they get their kicks, different things along that line. There are people out there. There are. But, I'm in the much more serious camp where when I'm writing a bad review, or not, I'm not even going to call it a bad review. When I'm writing a 1-star review,
there you go.
There are things to be learned from that review. I have friends who, again, I have a lot of reviewer friends, and we take the time to really sit there and say, why was this way? Or why did we have this reaction to this book? And I can give you a perfect example. I had a friend, and this is actually what started the author CEO. I had a friend that loved this man's work, absolutely loved his work. And he had written a book that I had such a visceral, this was very early in my reviewing, I had such a visceral review to this book. I was like, there is no way this character would have done this. There, just different things like that I just
like unbelievable.
Ripped the book apart. And he was very quiet. He handled it very professionally. And I was looking at how some of my friends were reviewing it, and they were reviewing it 4-star and 5-star, and and I'm like going, what am I missing? And I reached out to some of them, and the one taught me such a lesson. He goes, Naomi, the fact that you had that visceral of a reaction to that book says everything. And I sat there and it was like, oh my God, he's right. And I changed it to a 4-star review. I was still really irked that he did that with the character, but I changed it to a 4-star review. And the author reached out to me and he was like, all right, what happened? And I sat there and I explained my situation, and he said, do me a favor, can you write that? And that's what I did. I wrote up what my reaction was to the book. If he would have been thin, what I'm calling thin-skinned, if he would have had a reaction and he would have blown up and different things like that, it would have been really bad. Where I had a chance to think about it, I had a chance to digest it and then to come back. There are people who are reviewing books, again, that's how they get their kicks. They get their kicks by causing the drama. They get their kicks, different things along that line. There's nothing you can do about those people.
No, but you can learn something from the top reviewers who have something substantial to say about your book.
Right.
You really can. And I remember with my first book, there was someone who made a comment, and it was like a 1 or 2-star review. And they had made a comment like, I think it's really important that the children in your stories are solving the problems and that the parents aren't constantly hand-holding. And I was like, gosh, that, you have something to be said for that. Like here we're expecting kids to go to school and solve these big problems. I'm not at school with my children fixing it for them. So I've always had that in the back of my mind for the following, 8 books that I wrote, like really making sure that my children, are handling the problems, maybe reaching out to the grownups for advice. But when it comes to the time where they need to make a decision, they're making the decision because their grownups are at home. They're at school. Right. So I've learned, and I think I became a better writer because of some of those reviews. Some of them, like you said, were just obnoxious. But yeah, before I hung up my hat as a writer, because now I'm just publishing, I learned a lot from those. Yeah. So that's number one is I would say your first advice for bad etiquette would be not to react to the 1-star reviews.
Take what you need and leave the rest. If there's nothing to take from the review, but also be open to that. Be open to those critical, truly critical reviews. Don't sit there and go, there's nothing for me to learn from that, because you're not going to grow as a writer.
No.
The next thing that I would say is that, and it's not necessarily a critical, it's not necessarily critical. It is how to network. Really get out there. Other authors, when you're a self-published or small published author or whatever, really get out there and network, because there's always somebody who has done it, and people want to network. I mean, I have met so many authors.
It's a lonely industry being a writer. So connection is key.
Jump into those Goodreads groups where they're author groups. Jump into those, and really get to know those authors. And I have friends who literally fly around the country, or they're doing exactly what we're doing, or different things like that. And they help each other. They're figuring out social media,
together.
Yeah, exactly. They're figuring out. They're talking about what worked, what didn't work, different things along that line.
I'm sure when someone's book comes out and you have that network, they're going to be excited. They're going to be your cheerleader. They're going to get your book. They're going to share your book on social media because you've taken the time to make those connections.
And you haven't been jerkish. You haven't looked at them as being the competitor, because really, yeah, it's you're in a market, so there is competition, but you're also in a market where coming together and figuring it out because you're all in the same pool. There are enough readers out there that it's going to work. And so if you, as long as you play nice, I had a boss that once used to saying with me, it was play nice in the sandbox because you never know who's going to throw sand back.
Ooh, that's a good. You're coming out with those analogies. It's probably because you're reading so many books.
yeah. So, but no, that's, I always tell people, and we were talking about something else when she came up with that, but it was just, it was kind of, that I've always loved that and have always used that with authors. It's, play nice in the sandbox, because you don't know who's going to play or throw sand back, or fantastic. You never know who's going to build that sandcastle with you.
Now, Naomi, I love this conversation. And you had mentioned that this was a publication. Like, if we wanted to go through all of the advice you have on bad etiquette for authors, is this a publication that we can Google and we can find, or maybe I can post it in the comments below?
I'm at the authorceo or authorceo.com.
Okay.
You can find, and this was the other little piece of advice I was going to find. My favorite is badredheadmedia.com.
Yes.
So you can find me there.
Okay.
And then Indie Picks Mag, it's Indie Picks Mag, INDIE Picks, PICKS Mag, .com. And those are the biggest places to find me. And then on Twitter at nblackburn01.
Okay, I will put the links definitely. And so we could find out more, like the author CEO, you said you have a lot of advice there and feedback for authors. And just the importance, I think all of this goes back to the whole importance of networking and creative marketing. So creative marketing is thinking outside of the box. And how are you going to get the word out into the world about your product, your service, or your book? And one way that Naomi taught us was, one, through reviews and through a review publication like Indie Picks Mag, and two, by playing nice. By playing nice as an author and being a good person, supporting others. And if you get a negative review, take a look at it, take what you can in to maybe help you to grow. And if it's just ridiculous, leave it be. And you don't need to fight back, right? We should not be getting on the computer and, I mean, that's only going to hurt, I would believe, your reputation.
Think of it this way. If you're in a work environment, if you're working for an employer and think of your actions that way. Would your actions be tolerated if you were in that work environment? If it's not, then don't do it in your own business.
Absolutely. And when it's online, it stays online.
Exactly.
And it's like in your digital footprint. So
your behavior is your brand.
Yeah, your behavior is your brand. That is a really great note to end on today. Naomi, thank you so much for being with us today and for being flexible for switching your interview time.
Don't even worry about it. I'm happy. And again, I apologize. I'm like crazy right now. So
I just love that you took the time to share with all of our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Naomi. I really appreciate it.